You ready? All right. Welcome to Bits and Boards, a conversation where myself, Will Truran, along with our audience, get to learn from those on their game design journey. Today we are joined by Chris and Jordan of Horrible Adorables and Familiars and Foes, a game you can back on Kickstarter right now. Today our conversation is going to be centered around the concept of taking the art you already make and creating a game around it. Our M of One community is full of folks actively making art every single day. And they even go as far as like selling prints about it. But what if they could bring it to life through a board game like you guys did? Can we just start off real quick by you guys introducing yourselves and then in your own words, explain what Horrible Adorables is? Because I've got a whole bunch of adjectives in my mind, but I would love to hear what you guys are thinking and what you would explain it as.
Sure. So I'm Jordan.
Yep, I'm Chris.
And together we are Horrible Adorables. So Horrible Adorables is an art and design studio. We make curious critters from felt. We do art, we do design, we do toys, we do public art. We do a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. And then, as far as like what the Horrible Adorables are, so we always struggle with this too. Yeah, we have one over here. If maybe it'd be easier to show. So they're usually like these hybrid creatures we make. You know, people are always like, oh, is that a panda or is that an owl? And yes, it's all that. It's all kind of smashed together into one. But they all have these felt scales that we put on them. These are the mounted style ones. They can go on your wall over here. And then we have
this little cute guy over here. But they're very like foresty critters.
Yeah.
Know what they are. They're Horrible Adorables.
Yeah, it's got that. I think you guys explained it something like this on another video. It's kind of like creepy cute, where it's like bringing a magical force into your home, which I think is really great. And you guys through that you have like an online store, and I know that you guys have traveled around. You do conventions, gallery shows, and you guys are currently out of Cleveland, Ohio, right?
Yes.
Yep, that's right.
Perfect.
Yep. So we live, work here, but then we just show our art everywhere else.
I have a weird love for Cleveland, Ohio. One of my first big design conferences I used to go to was in Cleveland. And it was called Weapons of Mass Creation. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it.
We've never been there, but yeah, we've heard of that.
And so I spent every summer like looking forward to and going to Cleveland. And then after it ended, like me and some friends still drove out just to go hang out in Cleveland. I think the city's great. There's like a surprising amount of art and like design community there. So when I saw that you guys were there, I was like, oh, it's so good. Like just another little gem in Cleveland, Ohio.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Everybody has this terrible impression of Cleveland. We want to keep it that way.
So I'm originally from New Jersey. Then I lived in New York, and now I'm in Nebraska.
Oh, okay.
And people like will always like crap in Ohio. I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I think the whole state is great. Like, I think it's like the perfect. You have some of that East Coast influence, but you're also like that like Midwestern standalone state. So I don't know. I'm not going to be quiet about it. I want everyone to know Ohio's great.
Being like in the Great Lakes region and stuff like that, you know, it definitely has its own flavor. I mean, we're close enough to Canada, and then the whole Midwest, East Coast, you got all those influences. And the thing is, it's pretty cheap to live here. And I think you referenced the art scene. It's like there's a pretty thriving art scene because the artists can afford it. The customers aren't as great here, and that's why a lot of times we're going to New York, LA, Chicago, or overseas to sell our work. But there's a lot of art to be surrounded by here. It's really nice.
Yeah,
it sounds like a good place to be, especially as we enter more of a global market anyway, right? Like where location isn't so binding. So as people know, used to this show, we're 4 episodes in now, and we've always like picked a subject to talk about, and it usually doesn't have to do with games specifically, like specific games or specific studios. But you guys have this game, Familiars and Foes, on Kickstarter right now. So I do want to give you guys a little bit of opportunity, like what is it? Why should people check it out? What are the things that make it unique?
So Familiars and Foes is a cute occult cooperative game. And so I think that we were going to talk about this later, so I don't have to bring it up now about like how we started with a toy and basically created an entire board game and world about it.
Yeah, so the game as it stands right now, it's 1 to 5 players. The main mechanism is that you're playing a co-op game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like light RPG. We wanted to make this game both co-op, and then we wanted to make it as accessible as possible. So we look at this as more of a bit more of an entry level game into that genre. So if you're having a casual game night or a game night with family, something like that, this is great. But there is more depth to it as well. We have a couple different levels of difficulty. And to win on the harder levels, it's like you kind of really have to have your strategy down,
Mm-hmm.
know how to combo up moves and things like that. So you can grow with the game as well.
That's awesome. And like I said before, I come from gaming traditionally from Magic the Gathering and D&D, right? Just like full nerd. And then when I saw like your game, you have stats, you're rolling dice, you're beating monsters, but really, really adorable monsters. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
there is a second level to this. And there seems to be like an extra level of depth where you could almost just appreciate it for the cute aesthetics, but there's also kind of this like little bit of a grindy gameplay aspect. Is that all fair to say?
Definitely.
Mhm.
You know, yeah, the art, that's all of our cute aesthetic. You know, it's the creepy cute. We usually on the surface things are very cute, but if you just go a little bit deeper,
Yeah.
that's where it gets a little creepy and a little bit more depth. But yeah, we took references from Magic the Gathering, from Final Fantasy, you know, all
Yeah,
those types of
D&D.
games, and trying to make it just a very contained version, you know, of those types of games.
Yeah, accessible, like you were saying.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Cool. So the thing I want to talk to you guys about today was you guys are obviously first most artists, second now game designers, and a lot of our M of1 community are really known for their illustrations, poster designs, and kind of that aspect. And when I was looking through your store and on your website, you know, you guys obviously have mastered vinyl collectibles, these felt creations. They're felt, right? Is that the right
Yep.
material?
Mhm.
So what made you guys want to even start getting into game design? That seems not like a totally separate realm, but quite a gap to jump.
Who wants to answer that one? I'll go.
Thanks.
I mean, we love board games. That's first thing. You know, we love playing games, and some of our friends were getting us into more of the indie type of games, you know, away from the mainstream ones. And, you know, this is years ago, so I'm talking things like just playing Ticket to Ride or King of Tokyo for the first time, you know, and by today's standards, you know, those are pretty mainstream games at this point.
Which is crazy to me, right? Like when I was playing those games first, no one. It was like we would go to like one friend's house who had them all.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And, you know, we kept getting a little deeper, a little deeper. It's like, oh, what's this game? What's that game? Oh, a board game cafe opened up in our neighborhood. Let's go over there and check them all out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we kept getting deeper in it. And we love board games. And so it was kind of in the back of our mind. It wasn't, you know, something we said we were definitely going to do, but it's
Yeah.
always been something kind of bouncing around in the back of our head. And that's when this guy kind of came into the picture. So this is one of our vinyl toys that you had mentioned.
Yeah.
His name is the Familiar. He's this cute little spellcaster. He has a toad in his pouch there. He's got a pentagram on the back of his cape. So that's kind of like the little dark undertone going on with this super cute guy. So we were designing this guy in 2018, and then we were going to release him in mid 2019. So it takes, you know, about a year for sculpt,
Yeah.
design, production,
Sure.
everything like
And
that.
this was our first self-produced toy of the scale, like working with a factory in China, but
Mhm.
self-funding it and everything.
So that was a big step in itself for
Mhm.
us.
Yeah.
So we
But
were
at this point, the game wasn't a thing, right? You guys were just focusing on these little familiars.
Yeah,
Yes.
we were
Yeah.
focusing on things, and we were trying to figure out actually packaging.
Yeah.
So we're like a lot of so we come from the designer toy scene, and a lot of toys done in vinyl like this that are self-produced, they come with like a little bag and header card sort of thing. And we were trying to figure out, we're like, well, we want to do something a little bit different. Like, what can we package this guy in that's going to be just a little more themey and cute. And we're like, oh, maybe we should put them in a magic bag. Like, that'd be cute. Let's get a pouch and
So we have
stick
little
them in.
pouches like that, pop them in. And so it was really fun packaging, it goes with the theme well and everything. And so we're having a meeting with our producer, and Jordan starts joking around. She's like, oh, maybe we should take a D20 and toss it in there as well,
They push that magical enchanted theme.
So, we walked away from our meeting, and then later on that night, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, we should toss a D20 in there. In fact, let's design a whole game around this thing. That'd be super fun. And, we'd never done anything like that before, so we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We had 5 different colors of these guys coming out. So we thought, okay, let's make like this little card game, and each one will come with part of the game. So each one will come with a few of the cards. You collect them all, and then you have your complete game. So this was February. We had this idea. We were going to release these in May at a convention in New York. So we had 3 months to design a game to include with these little figures, and that's what we did.
So it wasn't enough that we were doing brand new toy technique, brand new toy design, and releasing it. We were like, we got to make a board game too, because we're extra. So that is what we did.
Yeah, we roped a couple friends into helping us out. They helped with some of the early design and some of the early illustration. And then, all the figures, we produced this little card game. And so that was kind of the precursor to the game that we have on Kickstarter now. Mm-hmm. We actually called it Ballyhoo at that point, but then we had to change the name because of trademark issues and things like that.
I mean, that might have worked out for you. I think Familiars or Foes is a stronger name. It's easier for me to remember that alliteration, and it's fun. And I think it captures a lot of what you did before the game and what the game sounds like it plays like now. So maybe it all worked out in the end.
I think so.
So what was entering board game design like for you guys? For me, I've always tackled game design mechanics first, then thought about how to wrap it in a theme and then do the art from there. But you guys started with the art. How do you think that might have impacted what you were doing with the game design and kind of the project as a whole?
So I think that everything that we do with our art, we really do feel like we're storytellers. So we created this character, but then we needed to think of the backstories behind all the characters because they're all different and generate personalities for them. And then we're like, okay, well, if this one is more of like the basher and this one's the helper, and like, how do they play together? And it was just this very natural progression of like, okay, now we got the characters' personalities down, and we got the characters. Now, what's the world they live in? Like, what are they doing? Like, what is their goal as these? What are these?
Sure.
And so I think, building the entire story around it first really led us to figuring out what the mechanics would be like.
Yeah, because the story of the game is that you're playing as one of these elemental familiars. So there's earth, air, water, fire, and ether, and each one has their own special abilities. And what's happened is that their witches and wizards have been kidnapped by a bunch of bad guys. And so these were kind of, their little spirit animals. These were their magical conduits. And once they were separated from the witches and wizards, the coven could no longer cast any spells or anything. So now these guys, they still have the magic, and they have to band together to rescue their witches and wizards. So that's the storyline. Yeah. And, that led into it. We wanted it to be a co-op game. So that was the first major overarching mechanic that we wanted as part of the game, that it was going to be fully cooperative. You have to work together to save your witches and wizards from the foes.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. One of the games I'm working on is co-op, and when I started playtesting it, a lot of my players had never played a co-op game. Mm-hmm. And I think it was a way for us to get people interested in that kind of what we would call hobby gaming, who never had before, because even though they were kind of maybe worried about the mechanics or the rules, they knew that the people next to them weren't going to be trying to take advantage of that. So when we talk about like you trying to make an accessible game, then this idea of co-op makes total sense. Mm-hmm. Even the idea of starting with a story and how you guys adapted that story to include mechanics or lead to mechanics is very interesting. Have you guys played any other games prior to this, or as you were researching games like that you could pull from inspiration that might have been that heavy story first? You can say no.
I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, if anything, I mean,
I think
maybe the Final Fantasy type
I
thing.
honestly, I'm thinking of board games, and like, I feel like for me, like the story is really important for me to understand how to play the game and like
Sure.
what my mission is. And I feel like when we were at like Gen Con and stuff, every time we played a game, they'd give us like the rules, and I'd be like, wait, what are we trying to do? Like, what's the backstory? Like, I can't fully understand it.
Yeah.
But so I do love video games.
Sure.
And I only love one video game.
Is it Final Fantasy?
It is. So, although I do love video games, I don't get to play them very often just because of how busy we are all the time with our business and everything. So I get like right around Christmas, I break out my PlayStation and I play Final Fantasy for like, I don't know, weeks. It's like all I do. And I still haven't really, I've started the 7 remake 3 years ago and I haven't finished it.
What's your favorite Final Fantasy?
8 for sure.
Ooh,
that's the one.
Yeah.
I love it.
I was interested in Final Fantasy through 7,
yeah,
which is I think a very normal, and then 8 and 9, and yeah, I mean all Final Fantasies. I haven't found one that I didn't enjoy, so
yeah.
that's a good franchise to love.
Yeah.
You mentioned Gen Con. Were these kind of game conventions and things that you were attending before working on the game, or was it something that started as you were like, all right, I think I want to make a game?
Yeah, so after we released the figure, then we're like, okay, so what do we've made this, kind of like beta version of this game. What do we do next with it? Are we going to try to like pitch it to another producer, or are we going to try to make it ourselves? We were just starting to learn that, games were big on Kickstarter. So we're like, okay, let's go visit some of these conventions. Like you said, we're in Ohio, and Origins is just in Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
So we hit up Origins that first year, and we had no idea what was going on. We showed up, and we had to keep going to like the help booth, and we're like, "What? How does this work?"
Yeah.
There is these these games that were just like taking up like 3 tables, and it was just like it was a gigantic like ship made out of, I don't know, cans and like toys and stuff. I was like, what is this? Is it like foam? And they're like, oh, that's like a game that someone made. It's a homemade game. They brought it here. And I was like, that's cool. But like, I've never seen anything like this before. So that was all like really fun for us, like to just be like immersed in a brand new scene.
Yeah. And so, so we went to Origins, and then we learned a little bit there. So then we went to Gen Con, and we learned a little bit more there. And so, for the whole rest of 2019, it was just kind of like research, investigation, and just understanding how the board game scene worked. And then, we were planning on trying to launch it in 2020, but the whole world kind of had other plans at that point.
Yeah, something happened.
A board game with friends. Yeah, it was the time.
So we decided to kind of put it on the shelf for a while. And then end of 2021, we decided, okay, we're going to do it in 2022. We're going to make the push. So we figured out how to sign up to be game masters at Origins. We did another small convention to kind of get our feet wet and just start getting it out there in public, and getting some game testing in and getting some feedback and everything like that.
That's really great. So first, there's something I love about what it sounds like almost a folk approach to game design, where it was just like, I want to make a game, I'm going to figure it out, right? And then on the second half of that, there seems to be like almost a respect for the culture and community, and you guys did your due diligence so that it's still, I would still say folk, right? In the fact that you guys are kind of just figuring it out as you're working. You're taking the things that you already knew how to do from Horrible Adorables. But there's also like this, let's go make sure that we're not making a fool of ourselves. Let's go make sure that we understand kind of this culture. And I think a lot of people don't do that. So I think it shows a a good insight to who you guys are as people and now as new game designers. I'm a part of quite a few Discords for game design, and you can tell like when someone comes in and they haven't spent the time like reading and listening and they just kind of jump in the conversation, and it's a bad first look. It's like, why would you start that way? And it sounds like you guys did a really good job, even as far as like not being embarrassed to ask questions, right? Like you were there for a reason to learn, and I think that's really great.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, our work started off in the indie craft world. So we did a bunch of shows there, and then we graduated to the designer toy show. And I mean, we've done shows like New York Comic Con.
Sure.
So we've done big shows before. But yeah, we realize, each community, they have their own way of doing things. And you need to learn that if you're going to be successful in it.
How have you found the game design community when compared to maybe art or kind of the productization that you might have been doing with Horrible Adorables?
It's really different. It's awesome and unique, and I feel like every scene that we're a part of is just they're very different from themselves.
The game community has been super friendly and welcoming, I feel.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had any bad experiences.
It's very big.
I
don't think I really grasped how huge gaming is, like board gaming, until we really got into it too.
Yeah, and the other thing is there didn't seem to be as much gatekeeping as there was in the art world.
Sure.
As far as being able to talk to companies and stuff like that. Like we when we were thinking originally about maybe just pitching this to some producers, like almost all of them had something on their website. It's like, oh, if you have a game design you want to tell us about, here's how you do it,
Yeah, or even the pitches that they have at like Origins and Gencon.
Right, to match you up. Now, we never wound up going that route, so we don't know how it would have been in practice.
Yeah,
but
that's something I think about a lot as I'm entering game design. I read a post on Reddit, and it was just like the biggest thing with Kickstarter is that people are getting into publishing when they don't want to be publishers. They just want to be designers. But you guys were already sort of publishers, or at least creators. So it makes sense that you would try to do this on your own at first, because you've done so well with Horrible Adorables on your own. How much do you guys think that learning how to do production in both your felt toys and then the vinyl toys and going to China for production, how much of that whole background you guys had impacted game design? Do you think it made things easier?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I was actually telling Chris this early in the day. I was like, I feel like everything we've ever done in our career has helped prepare us for this Kickstarter. Like we were using everything we've ever learned. Like even just like, I mean, our retail aspect, like we've worked with tons and tons of stores, all across the country, all over the world too. Like we work with a lot of places in Japan and Australia and France, and so we know how to like communicate with people when we were working out our like a retailer pledge, just silly stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as like actually producing it and getting things made,
like we know how to make stuff because of our background. We know how to make stuff. We know how to make it well. We understand the quality issues we need to look out for, the logistical issues that we need to look out for. So it puts us kind of in a weird place, because even though this is our first Kickstarter, we know how to do all this. We'd be able to self-produce this just fine if we could do it on a smaller scale. But, getting those min order quantities with the factories in China, that's one reason why we're kickstarting. And the other one is, this just seems to be the way to do it in this community. That's what we've learned. And in order to share it with as many people as possible, this was the path to do it.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. So prior to Kickstarter, you guys were developing the game and designing it. What did those first play tests feel like? I'm sure you guys, before your game was even ready to play test, you were seeing other people play test. Like you guys were saying, that ship thing made out multiple tables. What did your first play test look like?
I remember we did take it to a local game cafe and played with the owner there and some of our other friends. Like we have 2 other friends that helped us with the mechanics of the game a lot early on. And I think we brought a piece of masonite with like with a pentagram on it as the game board. And like our cards were like cardstock. Some of them are printed. Some of them were just like, there's going to be a foe here at some point. Just use your imagination. Like if I should break those out sometime.
To do like a post.
Yeah.
What does the early game design look like?
I mean, personally, I would love to see it. It sounds like you guys turned into the people bringing random assortment of things to playtest our game, which is such a good like foreshadowing of like, who are these people? What is happening?
I think we were using these toys as like player pieces a little bit too for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Like, choose your familiar, put it in front of you. It's gonna be your little toy.
One Piece's production outdid everything else out on the board. That's wonderful. How do you guys, I mean, looking back now, are you stoked that you guys play tested that early before having kind of graphics and a board? I know many people are nervous about playtesting too early or too nervous of being embarrassed, but you guys appreciated it?
It's the most important thing. I mean, you got to get out there and test it, and you got to really listen to the feedback that you're getting and make those changes. We've had, I don't know how many revisions we've had.
Yeah, I mean, we've made even recent design changes, like even since like having some of our reviewers show it and stuff, like things like everybody was saying, oh, there's so many pieces, like it's overwhelming. So we're like, okay, well, this is a prototype, so it doesn't really work yet, but let's bring that to one board. All the information is right here in front of you. It's very clearly marked out what you can do in your turn, what you can do in other people's turns, just to like bring it to one place. And so, every time someone
this
tells us
one
concern,
card
take it
used to be
seriously.
5 different ones that you have scattered in front of you.
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting aspect of game design that most people don't think about, is that table presence, right? Having a graphic design background, my goal so often is to reduce until I get to the minimum requirements. So how can I simplify everything? But then when it gets to the table, there's almost a letdown of there's not enough. And you guys almost had the opposite problem where you guys maybe went too far in assets and people are like, we need it. But having that feedback, it wasn't even game design as much as presentation maybe at that point, which I think is super interesting. Something that a lot of people don't think about is the presentation.
I'd consider myself a maximalist. Chris is a little bit more of a minimalist, so he kind of...
So we meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. I mean, even your I would say your felt sculptures kind of have that mixture feeling where there's lots of little scales, but overall, like the shape is simple and it's got a really strong silhouette. So I can see that kind of push and pull throughout all your work, maybe. So yeah, those first game tests. So you started at a game cafe, you said. Did you guys have a chance to bring it to one of those bigger conferences?
Not until this year. So we took it to both Origins and Gencon this year.
Yeah.
What was that like? Did you guys have a good reception? Did you feel, compared to the game cafe, which might be more local and I would assume a little bit more supportive because you guys are locals and that kind of Cleveland pride, what was it like going into like untested waters?
I mean, it's a little bit scary, right? Because you're coming into this, you're supposedly the expert of this game. You got to lead everyone through it, and it's brand new people, and they're all coming from different backgrounds, and people communicate differently and everything like that. So it's challenging, but it's so rewarding too. Especially when you kind of see like the light come on in people's eyes, like, oh, I get how this works.
Yeah.
And then having a lot of fun with it too. I think, how many did we do? Like 15, something like that. We did around 15 sessions of playing the game. I think we had one group that wasn't thrilled with it.
It wasn't for them. That's okay. Our game's not for everybody. That's all right.
But
they were pretty vocal on how it wasn't for them.
I'm working on 2 games right now. One is a simple spelling game, really easy mechanics, and one is a extraordinarily hard hobby game that you almost always lose, right? So 2 spectrums. And when I talk to people, one is always interested in one and not the other, and then one group. And I think that's the result of a good game, right? A good game should be polarizing a little bit, or no one's going to love it, right? Everyone will be like about it.
Yeah.
So Andrew Sale, who's a big part of M of One, just chatted and he said, "I'm so happy to see you guys on here. Been a big fan of Horrible Adorables for a long time." So
Oh,
you're getting some love from the chat.
awesome.
So the next thing I want to talk to you guys about a little bit is, so you had these sculptures and you had, I believe I saw some prints. Am I making that up? Was it just sculptures in 3D?
We've done prints.
I've seen
It's never
textile
been our main
prints.
business.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, okay. Actually, yeah.
Okay.
They're like stuff like this.
Yes.
Yeah, we do some
I think there's
like
scarves on your shop right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like that? So for much of that, it's the person buys it and then puts it on a shelf or looks at it, right? What was it like to see someone go from viewer to interacting with your product more intimately, where they're spending time with it and they're sitting and pondering and kind of it's almost meditative with a product rather than just something behind them?
Yeah, because most of our stuff is not functional. There's
Yeah.
we have some products like you mentioned, like a scarf and tote bags and stuff like that are a little bit more functional, where we have our illustrations on them. But this is the first big thing that we've done where it's completely interactive.
Mm-hmm.
So, considering how people are going to interact with it, like one mechanic of the game is there's a point where you do a coin flip with it. And we found out that this was the most criticized part of the game as we're doing game testing.
Yeah, it's very surprising.
Too
to us.
random?
No, that wasn't the problem. The problem was people either not liking to flip a coin or just physically having trouble flipping a coin.
I hate flipping coins. So I hate it. So this makes total sense. I get like a little bit nervous. Either that I'm going to embarrass myself or that I'm going to break something. Hate it.
See, with our game, like it's a team building thing, and it's like it's one person does it, then if they get the eyes open, then the other person does it, and if they get eyes open, then the next person, and it's like everybody gets like super excited and it gets kind of tense and the build up.
Yeah.
And to me, I love the chaos, like people flipping it all over the place and like
yeah.
But no, actually, that doesn't always work for a
no. So we found people like, because most of the game it's a D20, so you're rolling the dice usually.
Yeah.
But for this one particular move, people were actually just avoiding doing it. So they were choosing not to do something that was going to benefit them because they didn't want to physically interact with the game that way.
That's not good. I'm normally a big fan of forcing players, and even like I design websites that are frustrating because I like that someone has to hurt a little bit for a big payoff. That idea of like working through something to win something. But if they're playing worse because of it, it might not work out.
Yeah, so this is the whole thing of an interactive object. Like, well, you have to consider the person that's interacting with it, right? And how are they going to do that? So we started off with it was a poker chip that it has a little piece of metal in it, so it has a really nice weight to it. Mm-hmm. And we decided, okay, that's not going to work. So
people were like, it's too heavy. It's destroying everything on the board as it lands.
Yeah.
So, for the final design, we're still going to keep the coin. It's going to be just a very light chip.
Okay.
But then we're going to have an alternate method to do this as well. We're thinking maybe we'll just have like two cards, one eye open, one closed. You kind of do a little shuffle and you pick one or something like that.
Kind of like a tarot card type of deal.
Yeah, especially since the whole game is very tarot-esque.
I think that's a good solution.
Because it wasn't even like half and half. People hated it, half loved it. I feel like most people still loved this aspect of the game. Sure. It was just people that didn't. They let us know. So we want everybody to enjoy it though. So yeah, we'll definitely have an alternate option.
So another question from Andrew, who's in the chat. Has there been any pushback with you guys going into like the occult? I mean, I know it's very soft, but putting even something as simple as putting a pentagram on the back. The Midwest is very Bible belty. Has there been any, or has the game design community just not cared?
So there was definitely something that we had thought of, and I felt like really wanted to come at it as just magical, just very... a friendly, light, and just fun. It's fun occult.
Yeah, it's
I
just
hear
that
you.
mystical.
Kind of staying away from like satanic aspect and just focus on magic aspect and like covens and
Yeah.
witches, good witches.
So we did things like on our vinyl toys when we released these, we did do like the upside down pentagram. And again, that was an artist's choice to kind of look at the contrast between something that's really cute to having like this dark undertone and like kind of the message being like, oh, you can't judge a book by its cover type message.
But that's not something that has carried over to our
No,
game.
on the game we turn the star right side up, so it's more of a generic mystic, a symbol of mysticism at this point.
But it also goes with the 5 elements.
Right. Each point of the pentagram represents, fire, water, earth, air, and everything like that.
I think the more modern we get, I can't imagine anyone. I am about as religious as you can get, like overly religious. And my favorite thing to do is watch ghost hunting. Like I love that stuff, and it's kind of because like it never seems real ever. But I love the fact of like kind of that occulty, dark, like let's go out with our monitors and our mics. So the idea of putting on like a little pentagram just sounds awesome. And like, they're so friendly. So it's just like, it's the long run. So, but no one's picketing you at Gen Con, right?
No.
It's good, friendly magic.
I feel like it's on the level of just like Halloween. It's
like
nothing.
Harry Potter sort of.
Yeah, we had one reviewer. We had a couple reviewers actually kind of bring up that point, but one of them said, they're like, oh, I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but he's like, oh, when I got into it, it's like if you're good with Harry Potter, this is not going to be a problem.
Yeah, I think for most people, especially those kind of traditional Christian backgrounds, like I wasn't allowed to play D&D until I was like 19. It was like, I think it was like not allowed in our house, but my parents were okay with Magic the Gathering. So I was just like, this is all the same. But like once you dive into it, you're like, oh, like it's just fun. It's just pretend. It's just fun.
It's just fantasy.
And when someone flips over that first foe, I don't know if you guys have any of your foe cards there. That was like my favorite aspect I saw in the videos. Like once you flip that first foe over, like how could you possibly care anymore? Because there's so much humor and so much like adorable background to it.
He's got like the
porcupine. Yeah. So I think your art will have to win over anyone else. It's really a joy. So we're getting closer to the end. What I'm interested in, so have there been any moments like while playtesting that kind of really maybe touched you a little bit? Again, going back to the idea of like people they're not just observers of your art, but they're a part of it, right? They become almost part of the performance. Have there been any moments where you were like, okay, we're doing something really cool here? Because I know you guys had the coin, which was maybe not so good. You guys liked it. Maybe some other people did. But have there been any kind of community aspects as people are playing co-op maybe together?
I think there was that one session. I was actually not there. You were running it at Origins.
Yeah, we had a couple of really good sessions, even the ones together. But
do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, it was like a bunch of the most adorable girls. All had different color hair, so I felt like we all matched the different elements and stuff. And I was running it, and I was like, "You guys are our target audience, just like cute." None of them knew each other. They all came together to this game just on their own. And I felt like it was like a friendship building exercise. Like everybody was like very like wanted to work together, had really great communication too. So the cooperative nature of this game worked really, really good. And it was just people were cheering each other on for the ballyhoos and comboing up their attacks. And someone would be like, oh, my health is getting low. And they'd be like, I'll help you. Yes. I'm going to help your health. And it just felt like this is what this game is all about. Like just the true gut of this game is just that like
looking out for each other and working together.
I just felt so warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, no, finding the audience where it clicks. I remember, so the really hard game I'm building, I had been playing it with mostly designer friends because that's like the community I have. And most of them were tolerant of it. And they were like having fun. Like everyone was like, yeah, we'll play again for sure. Then I did some stuff to the game and I broke my game like bad. But we were playing with a new group and the game's supposed to be like an hour. We were on hour 2.5.
Oh, jeez.
And I was like, guys, let's just stop. Like, it's not going to end. Like, we're in this weird limbo of like, you're never going to win. You're never going to lose. And they were like, no, like, this is the game. Like, this is so much fun. And obviously we're fixing it. We're still the aspect, but it was that moment of like, these are the players. Like, these were the ones I had been thinking about. These are the people that I want to play it because they were in it to play. They weren't in it to win. They weren't in it, like, they didn't care if they lose. They like were just passionate about the mechanics, and it being co-op, you could see that. Like, there were times where you had to pull a card, and if it was bad, they would all like rub the card together and stuff. Like, they became, the longer we got into it, like the crazier they got, but like the more fun the game got. So I can totally understand, like, you walking up to that group of girls playing and just being like, this is what all the effort's been for. Like, you guys are what we're trying to build. And now all I'm picturing is just like the coolest sleepover and then playing under like blankets and stuff. I think that sounds like the perfect environment for this game now.
Yeah. Well, our game mat also is fabric, so you can use it as a blanket.
A very small blanket.
Very small blanket.
Yeah, no, yes.
At this magical sleepover.
So I got another question in chat, and then I'm going to have a follow-up for it for sure. So he's asking, it's Andrew again. Hi, Andrew. How many days, hours of time was put into creating the game and creating the promotional assets? Maybe even a ratio of like how much time was made for the game and how much time was on just promoting it and trying to build all those kind of advertising pieces.
Like, I don't know if I said this earlier or not, but yeah, designing the game was one project, and then preparing for a Kickstarter is a whole other project.
Yes.
I don't even know if we could put it into like,
well, just like ratio
hours, because
I think it's probably equal.
Okay, ratio. We've completely stopped working on other stuff and just focused on Kickstarter for months.
Yeah, because our full-time job is Horrible Adorables.
Yeah, so when we're not pulling in money from Horrible Adorables, we're not pulling in anything.
And we've stopped everything for the last 2 or 3 months as we've been approaching the Kickstarter here.
It's waking up, going straight to work, going to sleep every day, not getting
weekend
good sleep
every day.
Going to sleep at 5 a.m. Like, it's not healthy. I'm kind of like ready to kind of close a chapter on this and just get it made.
Yeah, but again, I think it speaks to that character I was talking about before, where you guys wanted to make a game, but you did the research, you became part of the community, and you're sacrificing for it. And I think there's a lot of people who aren't willing to do the sacrifice aspect, in both time, money. I would assume sleep. Like, I know when I'm that deep into a project, like, it interrupts my dreams. Like, so you guys you're doing everything that at least I personally respect in someone doing a project like this. It's taking all those steps. And I know for me, like, we were talking about this earlier, it might've been off mic, but, this idea of you designed a game and now you need to market it. And it's two different parts of your brain. And like, I have that hard difference of, oh boy, now I got to figure out like how to think strategically, not about my game design, but about how to get in front of people. And you guys putting into those words of it's two separate projects that are full projects on their own, I think sums it up perfectly. So again, just to toot your horn a little bit more for you, I think that shows everything that you would look for in someone entering the space. Something that I hope to do too is just not burn out over all those things. And be able to kind of change my brain when I need to and go back and forth. It's a really good skill. What do you guys think the biggest thing you learned while preparing for your Kickstarter, or maybe the biggest surprise? I was surprised. So I'll start it off. I was surprised to see you guys. So we met in a Facebook group for like board game news and reviews and stuff. I think you guys had put the kind of call out being, hey, we got a Kickstarter. Anyone want to talk? So even you guys showing up there is like a lesson most people might not get. I got that lesson from someone else we had on the show. I was like, hey, what was the best thing for your Kickstarter? He's like, this Facebook group, you should join it. I was like, okay. So like, what were the lessons maybe, or the biggest lessons you guys learned while preparing for Kickstarter?
A few of them, actually. It's funny, that group. So we got that tip from a podcast, and it was because when we were at Origins, not only were we playing our game, we're like, well, we want to experience this too. You know, we want to
participate in other people's games. And
right. This isn't all just about us. This is about the community. So we had signed up for a bunch of games, And the one was we were playing it late at night, and there was a guy sitting next to us, and we got to chatting with him, and he asked like, "Oh, what's the favorite, your favorite game you've played so far?"
And like, I'm always looking for an opportunity to like.
Yeah, she jumps on this.
I was like, our game. You heard of it?
And so like we totally like poor Patrick, like we kind of guilted him into coming to play our game the next day.
We showed him. I felt like we showed him all of our cool stuff there. We're like, oh, look, we have this cute little toy. So he had to see it at that point. He was wrapped with attention.
But so I guess to get back to your question, it's not just focusing on yourself, but focusing on the community and finding those opportunities, seeing those opportunities and taking them, so that someone's able to give you some advice, like getting on that Facebook page. It was a huge help. We got a ton of reviewers by doing that. I think another big thing we've learned is we have a big following as far as Horrible Adorables goes, but we weren't sure what the crossover was going to be as we went into the into making a board game. We didn't know how many people were going to be following us there. And it's like, okay, we know there's a big board game community. We know we have a big community behind us, but what's that Venn diagram? What's that crossover?
We didn't want to just wait and find out. We were like, we need to actively pursue the board game people too then, so that we get two coming together.
Right. So we created new Facebook pages, new Instagram accounts, and we started back with 0 followers and just kept working on that, trying to grow that and use that kind of as our measuring stick. How are we doing? Are people watching this? Who's coming from one side, who's coming from the other? And yeah, that, and then all the marketing too.
Oh my god. The marketing is, we've never done the level of marketing for Horrible Adorables with it being a successful brand.
Almost everything we've done previously has been organic, but to get reviewers, to do Facebook ads and all that kind of stuff, I mean, that was big lessons for us to do that as we're coming into the board game world.
A lot of things that we're gonna bring over to
we're going to take it back with us, because we're like, oh my gosh, this is great. We're going to keep doing this stuff.
And now we know what we're doing.
When it comes to marketing, I think reviewers and Facebook/Instagram ads are like the two big. Are there any other versions of marketing that you guys have found? Are you guys using newsletters at all or anything like that?
Oh yeah. I think one of the most important things is to get people to your mailing list. Like social media, I guess first of all is like, we're very, our community is on Instagram.
Yeah.
Well, I found out board game community isn't really on Instagram. Sure. Some of them are, but now,
there's people, on Twitter and Facebook and
TikTok, and
it's split up amongst them all.
Yeah. So having to get on all of those, but the thing that you can reach everybody is a mailing list.
Yep.
So trying to get people through all those social medias to our mailing list. So it's like you have to actively pursue all of them just to get some into one place. And it's exhausting, but yeah, I think that worked. We've been doing a lot of giveaways. The giveaways have been good for marketing too.
Yep.
What are you guys giving away?
Oh, so one of our add-ons that we have for the Kickstarter is we're doing these little
furry ones.
Yeah, yes.
So this is something we make in-house. And so we've just been making these little guys, and we gave away 5 of them in each of the 5 colors of the familiars.
Yeah, so the prototypes that we made to take our pictures and everything like that, we've just been giving them away.
Cool. So as we start to wrap up, what is the one big takeaway you want someone to have from Familiars and Foes? What is the thing that you're trying to make them feel? What is the thing that you want them to tell their friends about?
So I think it's a fun co-op game. That's what we really want people to come away with. It's a team building type thing, and also it's very what do I want to say?
Accessible.
Accessible. Yes.
It's anybody.
It's very welcoming and accessible.
And I think that it's good for people just getting into board games, kids. it's good for people that like are gamers and they're like, maybe this feels a little light for them, but as they start playing it, they like all these like combination sort of moves that we've hidden in, and there is strategy. It's all in there, and I feel like, yeah, we want everybody to experience
and people
it.
who are more advanced gamers, this is something they can bring to their friends that, you know, maybe are a little bit more casual, but they're still going to enjoy playing it.
What's the game length on it? What are you guys looking at?
So it's like 20 to, is it like 90 minutes? It just really depends on the group size, and also just how into it people are. We also have 3 different modes of difficulty, so that fluctuates it as well.
I was gonna say there's a lot of it that feels, when me and my friends used to go together to play D&D, we'd always start with something easier in the beginning, especially if we were waiting for people to like show up. And this game seems almost perfect for that.
It'll
3 to 5 player type thing, or just like, oh, and it's the dice and still monsters, and that it's still the mood, but something maybe you don't have to take as serious as when getting into your dungeon crawl.
Yeah,
exactly.
And also perfect for young women underneath their forts and playing at night and sleepovers. That's great. So people can find you on Kickstarter as Familiars and Foes. I've put it in the chat a couple of times, so hopefully people can find it and head on over there. Where else can we find you? Where else would you like people to keep up to date with you guys, either Horrible Adorables or Familiars and Foes?
So we have a website, familiarsandfoes.com, that has links to everything. We're very active on Instagram, but we do have everything else. So it's at Familiars and Foes. Instagram, Horrible Adorables.
We have our main site is horribleadorables.com, and then on Instagram, that's horrible_adorables. So that's where you're going to get the latest news, is on Instagram, but it will be shared through Facebook and Twitter, everything else
Discord,
as well. Yep.
TikTok.
And are all those links on your website? Is that where we should head most people?
If you go to one place, it links to everything else.
Perfect. Isn't the internet great? So, and a little bit more congratulations. I saw Kickstarter put you under the projects we love. So congrats.
Yeah.
That's really great. Last time I checked, you guys were about 2/3 the way funded. So congrats. I think it's only in 2 days. So for a first game, that's really amazing. I know you guys were a little nervous, like you still have that gap to fill, but I'm super pumped for you guys. The game looks great. The reviews that are coming out and the people breaking down all the parts, I mean, everything looks fantastic. So it sounds like you're doing everything right. So I'm super stoked on you. I'm super stoked how serious you took the community, and I hope people take the time to check you guys out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. We're trying. We're trying hard.
No, and I think it's paying off. So let me do my little sign off. You can find the games I'm working on, like D Space Here We Come and Spell Dice, over at 2rocks.com. That's the number 2, ROCS.com. And make sure you guys come back to Twitch this Monday and every Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, for Pop Culture Roundtable with good question asker Andrew, Patrick, and then Lauren. I guess that's for everything. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.